Yeah, against this right back, Charlie, definitely.
There's always just that active red back defending. I think it's like.
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian. Come on. Like the big man Ian Wright just said there, people deluded, I'm back again. Now, obviously, with the Premier League about to kick off, again, it's now time to get back into Q&A mode. We will be doing this on a more regular basis. So shout out to everyone who's bothered to ask questions. If you haven't and you're supporting, I appreciate you lot. On the topic of support, smash the like button. It helps the algorithm, and also hit the comment section. And one love to everyone who's watching the ads. I know these things can be annoying, but it helps us content creators. I'm appreciative of all of you lot who have asked questions. Let me see what you lot are saying. We've got, where's the other tab? Is it? Nah, that's just me listening to King Von and that. But yeah, we've got enough questions to get us through this. Big up the number 4111. Big up yourself because you're a member as well. You said, shouldn't Nketiah be on the market along with Flo? I feel he has value right now, whereas if he was to rot on the bench this season, his stock might drop. I feel we could raise enough for another right winger to rotate with Saka. Sucks. Why? DRB joined Villa. What are your thoughts on Mbuemo from Brentford, by the way? Dude's got skills. One love for your question. For Mbuemo, I like him a lot. Think he's good on the counter-attack. Think he has a good technical ability. I think there's actually, I know he can play up front, but I think he could be converted into an out-and-out forward. In relation to Eddie Nketiah, in another world, yes, actually, you're right. Still, both of them, you could argue that they have potential. Eddie Nketiah, I've always said, I think he's a bit disrespected in Arsenal, some sections of Arsenal fans, respectfully to him. I don't think he's anything to write home about. I don't think he's an amazing player. I don't think he has the stardust. And I understand the frustration. We've had Aubameyang, Eduardo, Henry and Nelka. The list goes on. Ian Wright, however old you are as an Arsenal fan, we've had a divine history of great forwards. So I could understand when Nketiah signed a new deal, when he's in the squad, when he's wearing number 14, when you could argue there is a pressing need for a forward. I understand it, but I do think in a system that isn't reliant, as dumb as it isn't reliant on a striker scoring goals. Don't get twisted. Arteta knows strikers have to score goals. We all know that. But, our most lethal hitman in the team is probably our wingers. Martinelli got double figures last year. Saka's done that the last 2 years. Odegaard's obviously chipped in. It's not necessarily the striker. And I do think Eddie Nketiah has shown he can play a role, whether that's a rotation option or little man minutes. I think he's shown he can fill a void with Jesus' injury, which unfortunately is the case now. There is a reality, I believe, unless there's significant development, where in the next 12, 18 months, 2 years, that both, Balogun's probably gone this summer, that both couldn't be there. You could argue Eddie Nketiah has value, but I would say I wouldn't probably set with Balogun about to keep it moving. If there's no assurance that we're going to bring in another striker, I wouldn't sanction Eddie Nketiah leaving. Obviously, if you're presented with a bid that's too good to turn down, that changes the dynamics, but we don't really have that many out and out forwards. Yes, Trossard, Martinelli, Havertz, they can do the false nine thing, as Arteta showed on Sunday with Havertz. Couple games you can do that, but I wouldn't say their strengths are through the middle really and truly like that, and they all playing other roles. Unless we bring in another striker, I probably would keep Eddie Nketiah. I don't think he's happy. No one's happy not to play minutes, but I think he's more mature than Balogun in a football sense, that I think at Balogun at right now ceiling is high. That being said, I do think one thing I like about Eddie, he surprises people. I think Eddie's more competent right now in what Arteta demands. I think he's more seasoned in all the other aspects of what Arteta wants as a striker. I think he has Arteta's confidence, and I think he's a bit more mature in that, Balogun. Obviously, I rate Balogun. I rate him as a footballer. But if it looks shaky at Arsenal, if you're going to go get minutes, go and do what you need to do to continue developing off the back of last season. But it seems like Eddie Nketiah is more mature in the sense of, how can I make it make sense? He's more mature in the sense of he understands clearly players are better than me. I'm in no position to demand things. If I get my chance and take it, that's another thing. And it seems like he's more stable in his role. It seems like there's not clarity over Balogun's future at Arsenal, in that it seems like all roads lead to leaving. I think he only played 45 minutes in pre-season, even though he's had injuries. And Arteta, in my opinion, when he's vague, when they ask, I think Arteta is very good at answering questions specifically. And he's very good at speaking. But I do think he's got that Pep Guardiola thing, or better yet, Arsene Wenger thing, where, if you ask him a question and he kind of goes round the houses like he did with Balogun when he said in relation to Jesus' injury, he said, you know, the plan doesn't change. The plan doesn't change. When he doesn't say things and it leaves areas of doubt, I think he's kind of telling us things. Be nice if Balogun signed a new deal, was kind of accepting that he's not quite there yet. I've always said personally, I believe that people overrate Balogun at this moment in time. That doesn't mean I don't think he's a good player. I do think he is, but I think ultimately he's been put on a pedestal that the same fans that are doing that will tear him down. I think he's a year more seasoned, experienced development and stuff. But these young footballers, they like curry goat. Curry goat don't cook quick. You have to take your time with it. Really, it takes a couple of hours still. And I think Balogun is in that realm, really. I don't think all the other aspects, the pressing, the general play, the dropping deep. I think Eddie Nketiah right now is better at them things there than Balogun, because he's been exposed to that a lot sooner, really. I think Balogun's at the right stage. You could argue both. You could argue, you know, they could both kind of be in the Iwobi realm and what we should have done with Ainsley, selling him to Everton or Wolves, or what we did with Joe Willock in that, you know, the first priority of Haaland is, by God's grace, you progress players to the first team. If not, sell them for decent money. Let's keep it moving. If you can put sell-on clauses, buyback clauses, tie down people to contracts, do that. So I do believe that, but I would personally wouldn't sanction that exit unless it's assured that we're bringing in a proper option. I'm all for Trossard as a false nine. I'm all for Martinelli. I'm all for, if Arteta demands it, Havertz. I'm happy with Jesus, but I do think we also need the option of an out-and-out forward. So I do think one of Balogun or Eddie needs to stay. Right now, it appears to be Eddie Nketiah, but for him, you know, how often are you, until there's significant development, bearing in mind you're 24, how much are you going to be content in the role you're currently playing, in a sense of, you know, how much better would you be if you played 20, 30 games? And since he's been exposed to first team, he hasn't got that at Arsenal, he didn't get that at Leeds. While I think he's developed a lot under Arteta, you know, how much more would you develop, rightly or wrongly, to a level you are or aren't, if you was playing week in, week out, getting significant minutes? And I do think at some point that's a reality that Eddie Nketiah might have to consider, really and truly. So great question to kick things off. Big up yourself. Big up my guy M. He said, is all the transfer window business done with the new midfield signings and Timber? Is all of Arsenal's business sorted? I would say the majority, and I do think if the window ended today, Arteta and Edu would be content. But I do think if there's scope to do things, then why not? You know, I think people forget part of the transfer window was keeping players. We've signed numerous players to new deals. We've got Rice, Havertz, Timber in early, and now it seems like we're kind of focusing. Raya's coming in. Two competent keepers, you know, great second choice between Ramsdale and Raya, and a great first choice depending on who wins that battle. I do think if you ask Arteta, and like every manager in the league, you know, even if you signed 11 players, there's always something more you would have wanted to have done. You know, like the question previously, if you can get a right winger, regardless of Nelson signing a new deal that can potentially push Saka out the side or push him to be better or rotate to a suitable standard, I think they'd want to do that. I don't know it, but my personal thoughts, if not only with right wing, if you could bring in another centre mid, why not? You know, if you could bring in a striker with a bit of different strengths to what we already have, why not? And you keep seeing Arsenal linked with centre backs and full backs. Actually, I don't know where Mikel Arteta is in that. You know, I don't know if that's affected with Tierney leaving or maybe an injury to Tomiyasu. I would say we're kind of sorted at right back with Timber and obviously Benjamin White. Left back, obviously you've on paper you've got Tierney, you've got Zinchenko, you've got Timber, you've got Tomiyasu, if I didn't say that before, you've got Kirill, you've got 1-2 options over there. Centre back, I like Kirill. I think it's unfortunate that you've got a great partnership with Gabriel and Saliba, but I think he's waiting in the wings for his opportunity. Obviously, Tomiyasu can play centre half as well, as can Benjamin White and Timber. You've obviously got the big boy Saliba as well. So I think we've got decent options. Respectfully, not to give him a stray, with the exception of Rob Holding. You know, I think I like him, but you're just not levels to where we want to go to. I think we're kind of sorted. So for me, I would love to, you know, I'd love to wake up and we signed another right winger, another striker in the centre mid. But if you could bring one of the three, I think that's needed. If you pushed me, I do really want a striker. I do really want a right winger, but I just think we're missing a trick with just not having one more central mid option. You know, we've got Declan Rice, we've got Partey, you've got El Nene and Jorginho that can be rotated in and out. You have got the Fabio Vieiras, the Odegaards, the Smith Rowes, guys that can play rotating eights. I don't know if I just said Kai Havertz there. Some people would argue Trossard as well. So I would say it's 98% done. Obviously, with Raya coming in now, you know, that was probably a situation on the market that was put on our doorstep and we took advantage of it. So I would say it's done, but I would argue, is it really done, really and truly? Big up the other questions. H has said, do you think we should be looking to sign an out-and-out number 9? For me, if you could, not that there's a whole list that we could sit here and list bare strikers and stuff. I think scouts need to do their job because players have to pop up from somewhere. Every 12, 18 months, there's an ex-striker linked with everyone. Osman's come to the fray. You know, that lends you, is it Openda or something like that? He went live sick. He was about. Højlund was been on the scene and has gone to, you know, gone to Man United. So I would like a striker, but I don't think there's a whole list. Maybe in like the early 2000s, definitely the 90s, for those of you older than me, where you could list bare strikers of all levels, really. Really, every striker, probably if we're going to bring in a striker, it has to be a calculated risk sort of thing. You've asked a great question, because I see Arsene Wenger there in terms of what the question. Do you think Wenger will ever, or in brackets, or has forgiven the hostility a section of our fans and board showed to him? I would say, you know, yes, because the vast majority of fans weren't like that. They adored you. You know, me, I gave up on Wenger at the last stage. You know, Wenger is a whole reason I've started YouTube and see football in the way I did. So I think he has to have, you know, especially when you've given your life more or less to this football club and we're enjoying the fruits of your labor. You know, you've got former players in Mertesacker, Arteta and Wilshere in positions. You know, you built the Emirates. You know, you was a big fan on Hale End, and you're seeing the Smith Rowes, the Sackers, the Nketiahs, the Nelsons, etc., all doing what they're doing. We're in a great financial way, something that he predicted. You know, we're spending 105 million on Declan Rice and stuff. He's got his statue. Arteta has got all the fans and whatnot singing from all aspects of the club singing from the same hymn sheet. But in life, you're not going to forgive them. It's a bit like Granit Xhaka in that, you know, the way he left the club when he actually left, to how when Arteta walked in and he was going to leave is completely different. I think, you know, he's forgiven the majority of fans that were like that, but you never quite forget that. But what I would say to Wenger, it's a small percentage in it, so it's not really relevant, really. But I would say he's forgiven, but not necessarily forgotten. The Nigerian Ninja, what a name, has said, why doesn't Trossard start games for us? I don't know. I just think maybe Arteta deems Martinelli's too important to the system, and Trossard is better at this moment in time impacting the game, and one of the best impactors, as you saw at Wembley against City, where we won the English Super Cup. So probably that. But I do think he's one of our players of pre-season. I think him, Timber Kiri will be the three for me. And I think he does deserve to start games. And he's probably pushing and banging on the door of Arteta. If you were Tierney, would you leave or stay this summer? It's an interesting one, because I'll say why I would stay. I think I think Tierney's very competitive. I would think I can earn my spot back. At this moment in time, you were linked with City. Really, you've been linked with Sociedad, back to Celtic and Newcastle. With the greatest of respect, Arsenal's a better attractive thing to them. Newcastle, probably going to more play as a traditional left back, closer to your family in Scotland, you know, around the corner, really, Newcastle. Exciting manager in Eddie Howe, exciting times with the new owners. So reasons I would stay is because I would want my spot back. Arsenal in the Champions League. Arsenal's been a lot healthier than what I thought. I don't really want to run from a challenge. Why I would leave, because in pre-season, off the back of last season, it's not just fighting Zinchenko, in it. You know, while I think Tierney's given the inverted role as good as he can get and things like that, you're not that in it. You're an organic left back. Kyrill's played centre mid and he's a centre back, and he's got a bit more about him in that inverted role. Tomiyasu is a bit better at man marking and doing a job and being a cold-hearted killer, you know, like you saw with Liverpool at the Emirates last season, you know. And you've obviously seen Timber come in, and obviously Zinchenko, if fit, is probably going to play. So there's hella man in front of you, really, and minutes are currency. You're not really in the first team lineup, really and truly. Another one, to go back to the previous question about Trossard, another impactor. So that's probably why I would stay and leave. I would probably lean towards, I'd be in the balance if I was Tierney. It all depends on the offers put in front of me. If Newcastle asks for me, I probably would go. If Sociedad asks for me, yeah, I live in sunny Spain and that, but I probably would turn it down, even though, forgive me if I'm wrong, Sociedad, I don't even know if they're in the Champions League, really. I think they were pushing for that in La Liga last season. I don't know, but there's an option. I would probably lean towards leaving at this moment in time slightly more. Will Aiden Heaven, I can't say his name, Heaven, make the same impact on the under-18s that MLS and Ethan had last year? Let the man develop, take time with him, and we'll see in it, really. It's very difficult. I think he's a good player, but, Miles Lewis-Skelly and Ethan, you know, they're exceptions rather than the rules. They're them kind of star boys sort of thing, but we have to give them lot, Koza Juby and everybody time, really. 9 times out of 10, it's the academy prospect that you're not looking at that is the one that surprises the most. You said next summer, what top 3 strikers should we shortlist? Honestly, not a clue, really and truly. I do like Osimhen, but again, for whatever reason, that's difficult to obtain from Napoli. I do like Ivan Toney, but 12 months from now, there'll be a next striker on the scene that we're waffling about. Great questions, though. Scenario, keep Patino or sign Locatelli. Difficult. I want to keep Patino, but, you know, Arteta did want Locatelli, so you must know how good he is, previously linked with him, and that's a more competitive option. I know he hasn't set the world alight at Juventus, but it's a more competitive option in terms of achieving things right now, trying to get as far as we can in the Champions League. Whisper it, but, you know, small hope that we can win it. Probably a myth. The league and all of that. He's significantly more experienced and consistent in the professional game than Patino, so I'd probably lean to that. You said, will Timber be the reason Zinchenko gets more minutes in midfield this season? That could be an option, really. It could be an option, and it's a great conundrum to have, really. The more Timber keeps doing it, the more we get greater levels and layers, but honestly, who knows until the season impacts, really. Great questions, nonetheless, from everybody. And as usual, appreciate the questions. Again, comment in the comment section any other questions and we'll get round to it, man. If there's enough questions, I'll try to get one out just before the season kicks off. Jay has said, will Kai Havertz up front work? Not until he finds his shooting boots, or it's probably going to be more of the same of what we saw at Chelsea / I think he did well against Manchester City, where he offered a physical outlet. He mucked in with the collective game plan, but he had 2 chances, and maybe on another day we're looking and saying, boy, you know, should have had a brace. Maybe even one of the 2, whichever one Benjamin White set you up for, I think should have bagged. Pardon me, Arteta, whatever training Arteta did with Smith Rowe when he got double figures, Odegaard last season, Martinelli last season, and Saka the last 2 years, I think he's got to you got to help Kai Havertz get his shooting boots. So I would say that. Is Timber the new Rolls Royce? I'd say he's a Bentley. Saliba's the Rolls Royce. He's the Bentley. They're both wavy, innit? If Mikel doesn't win the league, should he walk? No, I don't think so. It all depends on the context, but no, I wouldn't. Is a striker more of a priority over a right winger? I would say yes and no. I think they're of equal importance. As you see, we kind of run Saka into the ground. Another right winger that could get significant goals boosts us to the next level. I do wonder where we'd be if we could sign like an Ivan Toney sort. You know, we'd have a lot of variety. If we had an Ivan Toney Giroud sort, you've got that, you've got Jesus, you've got whatever Arteta demands for Eddie and Nketiah, and then you've got all the false 9 options in Martinelli, Havertz, Trossard, as much as Arteta wants, really and truly. That's actually another thing, because, you know, Arteta didn't really have that many options last season. Now you kind of got significantly more, really. And in life, when you kind of have limited resources, you know, you can actually overperform. When you've got too many resources, will you play to the same level? I don't know, people. So that's a good question. And finally, could have scored 11 goals in 30 starts in the Dutch league last season. Do you think he's a better 9 than Eddie Nketiah? If not, maybe that's why Arsenal wasn't pushing for Kudus. Kudus is a versatile player, can play up front, on the left, on the right, in the 10, and actually in the 8. I don't necessarily think he's a better number 9 than Nketiah, but I do think he's better in the final third, if that answers your question. I don't think we'd be signing Kudus to play organically as a striker unless Arteta wants to develop him in that. I just think he's another multifunctional player, which in theory Tomiyasu is, Zinchenko is, Jesus is, Martinelli and Trossard are. You know, and there's a bunch of other players that at this moment, into Smith Rowe, Havertz, if I haven't said his name, and there's a bunch of other players at Arsenal that you could say that with, really. So I think that the very fact that he could fill in for primarily Saka, I think he'd probably more likely play on the right at this moment in time. You know, fill in for Saka, rotate for Saka, maybe even take Saka's place if the form's a bit iffy. As Arteta said, we want competition everywhere, really. Nobody is safe. Benjamin White and Ramsdale, ever present since they signed for the club. You've now got Raya and Timber if he challenges at right back. And actually for Zinchenko, that's an issue as well. We want to be in a scenario one day where maybe Saka, Odegaard, at this moment in time, Jesus, you know, they're looking over their shoulders. Left winger, you know, again, we've seen Trossard nail down that spot. We've seen Martinelli and Smith Rowe. We need options. If everybody's applying themselves and everybody's scared to lose their spot, we have more competition, obviously more depth, and we can cope with injuries. I can't lie, this has been a short but enjoyable Q&A. Again, comment any questions you want covered in the comment section. One love to my members and also my subscribers for answering questions. Hopefully, I've answered these questions in the best of my ability. Subscribe and smash the like button if you haven't done such already. One love.
There's always just that active red flag defending. I think it's like